everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of Health Discourse with Sakshi and Sushant. Hi, Sushant. Good morning.
Very good morning.
Folks, today's discussion is going to be very interesting because we will be talking about amino acids. And yes, it is a protein that has been a buzzword for quite a decade now. We have seen a lot of supplements coming up. We have seen a lot of influencers talking about that X amount of protein per body weight should be the ideal approach. So, Sushant, let us begin the discussion. My first question to you is that there are many researchers that state that there has to be an X amount of value of protein per body weight. So how accurate is it for everyone? Because as far as I understand that everyone has a unique biology, right? And when
Mm,
we talk about amino acids, it's not essentially protein, it's the amino acids, right?
mm,
There are there are essential and non-essential amino acids, right?
mm.
Now, if we say that everybody needs the same amount of protein, wouldn't that be a huge scientific mistake in understanding how amino acid works inside the human body?
Basically, to start with, it's a marketing narrative, and it has been here basically because there have been no solutions for obesity uh, and diabetes, and this has been a proxy sort of nutrient substrate which has been promoted or has been, scarcely understood and being sold as the only solution to curb obesity and type 2 diabetes. And these are further fueled by all these fitness companies and fitness influencers and gym bros and all those people, right? And even now we have seen VCs uh, have been given to believe that protein is a solution, and they have been given to believe that India is a protein deficient nation. And you remember we have been this heated discussion with a lot of these fitness folks on this, and most of these people do not understand the role of microbiome in the metabolism and fermentation of proteins, right? So essentially, most of us talk about protein, whey protein, protein powders, and dietary sources of protein, and we all know that protein is when it gets inside our body, it is broken down into various constituent amino acids, and these amino acids interact with our microbiome, with various host cells, right? And these interaction leads to production of various biochemical entities and signaling molecules that impact our physiology, right? So ideally, we may here eat zero point 0.8 grams per kg of body weight, or 1 gram, or 1.2 gram, or 1.4 gram, or 1.6 grams, right? And all these are based on certain population studies. So the idea is, we basically we are not saying do not consume protein. The objective of today's discussion is that way you are personalizing your diet, you have to personalize the consumption of your amino acids based on how your amino acid interacts with your biology, and your biology is very unique. So no more 2% do not share more than 5% of their biology. So essentially, it's very unique. So what works for you may not work for me. What works for me may not work for a third person, right? So ideally, as you are personalizing your carbohydrate intake, your vegetables, your fruits, you have to your fats, right? Beverages, right? You have to also personalize your amino acids, right? So because most of the population studies are based on average individual, average healthy individual, and we are neither average nor healthy, right? So essentially, those cannot be the insights from those clinical studies, which are basically used as a proxy by a lot of these fitness folks to substantiate their obnoxious claims, right? So ideally, that cannot be translated into your biology. So obviously, you take certain insights from these clinical studies, and then you decode your own biology, right? And obviously, you need to understand. So you can biology cannot be understood without understanding your microbiome functions, right? So essentially, you have to decode your biology, your microbiome to understand what specific amino acid, what quantity you need right now, right? So to answer your question, right, starting point could be maybe taking zero point 0.8 or 1 gram of protein per kg of body weight. But again, how each of the amino acid interact with your biology is very, very essential to determine whether whether a specific amino acid is going to be beneficial or harmful for you. So the entire point, I'm just reiterating, entire point of discussion is not to tell people do not consume protein. We are actually encouraging people to consume protein, but you have to personalize what specific amino acids your body needs, based on your biology, and their biology changes every 3 to 6 months. Obviously, your personalization of your amino acids would also change, like the personalization of your food changes. Yeah.
So my next question is that what, according to you, is the biggest culprit when it comes to amino acid? Like we have seen that there are studies that are quoting that excess of amino acid intake could lead to chronic kidney issues. Some of them could also lead to cardiovascular issues. Okay. Now,
Mhm.
as per the data that we have, what, according to you, is the main culprit when it comes to excessive protein consumption?
Okay, so I'll before that I will share a particular chart with you, right?
Okay.
And this will give a clarity on why generic population-based studies will not help, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So wait, here. So this is a very cited study, modern study, and this graph shows that the relationship between protein intake grams per kg of body weight per day and relation to fat-free mass. Right. So ideally, if you see, there's a scattered plot here, right? And the research is also not statistically significant. It is p-value is 0.079, right, which is more than 0.05. So essentially, it is not statistically significant, right? And if you remove these vertical line, which have been kept to promote, consumption of protein, so this, people have been following that we should consume 1.62, which is a daily protein intake break-even point. But again, scattered plots show that, you know, the different consumption of protein at different quantities on a daily basis does not have a direct correlation with increase in fat-free mass. So most of the people look at mass building, protein, muscle building, and again, this clearly shows that this has no very very less correlation because of scattered, right? So there's no you cannot arrive at a correlation or a trend based on this research, right? So ideally, this is one of the important research. I'll share the research. This is modern study which is cited by everyone globally, right? So again, these research also do not consider, so most of the research do not consider, specific amino acids and their metabolism based on their interaction with the microbiome. So it is very impossible to cover all of the amino acids, but I will take 3 to 4 major amino acids which are implicated the excess consumption, and their fermentation biomicrobiome is implicated in onset of cardiovascular diseases, aging, and cellular senescence, right? So if you look at, first thing, I think yesterday we did a shot on TMAO, trimethylamine oxide. Right? Again, it is a byproduct of your gut bacteria, metabolizing choline and lecithin and L-carnitine and all these. So TMA, we know TMA specifically is a beneficial molecule that it helps control your glycemic response. It can help you overcome blunt inflammation in case then you're consuming more of palmitic acid or seed oils, right? But you know, in correlation with the oral health, if you have compromised oral health, specifically P. gingivalis induced LPS, that could lead to high expression of MO3, that oxidizes TMA into TMAO, and TMAO is actually an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease, independent of CRP protein, independent of cholesterol, independent of LDL, right? So, irrespective of these blood biomarkers, TMAO is an independent biomarker for onset of cardiovascular disease, and TMAO also lead to oxidative stress, uh, DNA damage, mitochondrial dysfunction. It also suppresses nitric oxide production, which is one of the key signaling molecule for dilating blood vessels and preventing plaque deposition in arteries. So ideally, first is TMAO, which is again your gut microbiome and oral microbiome metabolizing choline and other carotene and lecithin into TMAO, which is again so one of the prominent food which has choline and lecithin is eggs. Right? So ideally, it all depends. We are not saying eggs are bad. So we have eggs is touted as a superfood, but again, if your microbiome specific microbes are expressing virulence gene that is leading to production of TMAO, which is harmful. So those people may need to avoid or minimize the consumption of eggs for some time right now. Maybe it is transient, so maybe after 3 to 6 months the microbiome changes and eggs may come back into their superfood or a food which they nourish, right? So essentially that is one aspect. Other is we have to look at you know another amino acid called histidine, right? So histidine again is could be metabolized by gut microbiome into imsial propionate, which we know is one of the key biomarker for glucose intolerance and type 2 diabetes, right? But it also have a direct impact on you know cardiovascular health, right? So ideally, this actually, irrespective of cholesterol changes, this particular metabolite produced by your gut microbiome, you know, could lead to cardiovascular disease via, you know, changes in endothelial cells and macrophages, right? So ideally, this could, and this is, uh, could be an early risk factor even when your blood works do not show abnormalities in your C-reactive protein or cholesterol or LDL, right? It is an early risk factor which is again precursor precedes the abnormalities in blood work, right? So measuring imsial propionate could help you even understand, potential for or your movement towards developing plaque in arteries, right? Which is an early starting point for cardiovascular disease, right? And again, so MZL propionate could over a period of time lead to you know uh, this plaque development in arteries, right? And then third is what we call is phenylacetylglutamine PAG, which is now being studied widely. So it is again a microbial fermentation of phenylalanine, right, which is again an aromatic amino acid. And again, this could lead to platelet aggregation, right? This again leads to increased risk for cardiovascular disease independent of changes in cholesterol, right? And this also lead to cellular senescence, right, and metabolic inflexibility, right? So these again, what I'm saying is not for everyone. You have to understand your gut microbiome functions, your oral microbiome functions to determine whether they are actually, fermenting phenylalanine into phenylacetylglutamine, right? So these are three. Then you should also look at certain uromic toxins such as precresol, which is again a metabolic byproduct of tyrosine. Precresol causes oxidative stress, right? It uncouples endothelial nitric oxide synthase, which is required to produce nitric oxide, and nitric oxide deficiency is linked to your low glucose uptake, high blood pressure, and increases for plaque development and platelet aggregation in arteries. So again, arterial walls, and again, this is again a risk factor for type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease, right? Similarly, indoxyl sulfate, which is again a metabolic byproduct of, indole derivative, which is again a metabolic byproduct of tryptophan. Again, tryptophan can be metabolized by your gut microbiome into indole acetic acid or indole propionic acid, which is beneficial, which improves your metabolic health, or it could be into indoxyl sulfate, which is a uremic toxin which causes kidney health issues, which causes cardiovascular diseases, right? And then the biggest one is leucine. So, leucine, we all know that branch chain amino acid is generally used as a pre and post workout, sort of supplement, right? And leucine can, you know, excess leucine, and when I'm saying excess leucine, if you're consuming, could lead to overactivation of mTOR, you know, mechanistic target of ripamycin, and mTOR uh, actually triggers endothelial dysfunction. It uncouples endothelial nitric synthase, and it could lead to suppression of nitric oxide, which again is an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease, right? So the idea is we have to change the narrative here. So we all know the baseline. We have to consume a baseline protein which is required, but you have to also consider how your microbiome interacts with specific amino acids. So you have to personalize your amino acids metabolism, right? Which is very, very essential. Without it, you may be triggering number of systemic inflammatory cascades inside the body, and you may not be aware of it.
Now the question is, how do we personalize our amino acids? I mean, yeah, we have told them that it's necessary to personalize them. Now the question is, how do we personalize that?
Okay, so first thing is that basics is that you should not fall for generic recommendations that consume 1 gram, 1.5 gram. Because if you take a protein powder, right? I'm not going to press about L-arginine right now, but because L-arginine is found in every protein powder. You take whey protein or any protein powder you consume, right? It has L-arginine. L-arginine is a semi-essential amino acid, and we are never deficient of L-arginine. So essentially, if you're consuming too much of L-arginine, it could be used to produce. It could be used to. It is diverted to produce polyamines and urea, and it is not used to produce nitric oxide, which is required to dilate blood vessels. So again, we have to first, overcome this, myth that we have to consume take whey protein one gram or 1.5 grams. That's the first thing. Second thing is that you have to go beyond your normal blood biomarkers and understand your microbiome functions. I'm saying functions. I'm not saying potential. I'm not saying DNA. So, except us, all the gut microbiome companies in India just measure which bacteria is there or potential of that bacteria to do something to perform a biochemical reaction, potential to produce a particular metabolite, right? But you have to actually measure whether they are actually based on the environmental input, which is specific amino acids, whether they are expressing specific genes that is causing production of metabolites which have a cascading effect on biology. So essentially, measuring your gut microbiome functions can tell you what is your IMSIAL propionate production, what is your phenylacetyl glutamine production, what is your TMAO production, what is your precresol production, what is your indoxyl sulfate production, what is your butyrate production, what is your you know indole propionic acid production, right? What is your L-arginine metabolism? What is your leucine metabolism? What is your alanine metabolism? Number of these things. So these are something what we measure gene frequency. So we measure your real function, your microbiome functions. We actually translate your environmental inputs, including your nutrition, into these metabolites and the cellular signaling, right? Which helps you understand whether your microbiome is producing a lot of these metabolites which may trigger, early risk for cardiovascular diseases, and these are missed out. So essentially, when you talk, so these people may say that no, protein is not linked to kidney disease or heart disease. Ask them about uremic toxins, ask them about MZL propionate, ask them about mTOR overactivation, ask them about phenylacetyl glutamine, ask them about TMAO, right? So all these are, I believe these could be in future could be a standard uh, biomarkers, right, to identify the risk for cardiovascular, irrespective of C-reactive protein or LDL or high cholesterol level. That's a normal test, generally normal biomarkers people are resorting to right now. Yeah.
So I think this seems like a very authentic way to understand how your body metabolizes, all the amino acids, right? But now, you've already said that that excess of any kind of an amino acid is going to cause a problem, right? Whether it is a cardiovascular or chronic kidney
It
issue.
it depends
Now,
upon no, Sakshi, it depends upon how your so it is not about consumption. It is
okay,
about absorption, how your
yes.
microbiome is interacting with every single amino acid, right? So it cannot be generalized that phenylene is bad for me, or leucine is bad for me, or choline is bad for me, or tryptophan is bad for me, right? So probably we need to understand how they interact with the microbiome and what is produced as a result, right? So that
Okay.
is why I'm telling that we have to personalize amino acid consumption,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you
Mm-hmm.
may have to look at, specific food which have specific amino acid. It could be protein rich food. It could be even, uh, specific vegetables which also have sulfur containing amino acids, different amino acids. For instance, broccoli has sulfur containing amino acids, right? Cabbage has sulfur containing amino acids. Now, so I'm just not deviating, but again, sulfur is again could be metabolized by oral microbiome into methyl mercaptan or hydrogen sulfide, which could be an early risk factor for oral cancer and even for bad breath, halitosis, right? So ideally, it all
Yes.
depends upon the first interaction happens with the microbes in your mouth. Right? So this is very
Mm-hmm.
important to understand, right? So we are personalizing, we are saying, okay, we are personalizing right now foods based on just on how it is impacting your sugar spike, right? That's just one part of millions of biochemical interaction happening inside the body every single second, right? So we are just
Mm-hmm.
touching, not even kissing the surface here, right? So you have to
Mm-hmm.
personalize each and every molecule. So food ontology, nutrition ontology is a summation of more than 100,000 molecules, more than 1 lakh molecules. Now, how personalizing each of the 1 lakh molecules is something what we mean by hyper personalization of nutrition that could, you know, maintain a homeostasis.
Yeah. So I think let's talk about the consumer behavior here because I think we've done a lot of we've worked with a lot of people for in terms of personalization of their nutrition. So what do you think has been a overall response of people when we have personalized their each and every aspect of the nutrition, whether it is amino acid, whether it is based on their insulin response, based on all the pathways that we measure.
Mhm.
So, what do you
Mhm.
think has been the idea? I mean, you have the data for
Mhm.
each and every food, how it is coming up in people, but what has been the acceptability of such hyper personalization?
So first of all, I'll tell you based on some data, some uh, you know uh, shocking insights. So
Yes.
69% of our patients, of our customers, have protein fermentation level which we measure. So again, it is if you have a high protein fermentation level, probably you are consuming high amount of protein, or probably you don't have the right stomach acid to metabolize a lot of these amino acids. They land up in your gut where your gut microbiome ferment a lot of these amino
So,
acids.
So you are saying that 69% of people do not have the bacteria to properly absorb the amino acids. That's what you
No,
are saying.
so
When we are
69%,
fermenting the protein?
69% of the people are those who are consuming excess protein before they came to us, right? And
Okay,
they had low stomach acid. So most of these fermentation, 69% had medium average fermentation, and around 25% had uh, suboptimal fermentation, right? So it
okay.
is so fermentation is obviously looking at your methionine production, looking at your hydrogen sulfide
Methionine.
production, where ammonia, putrescine, right? So all these we're looking at all these, and we're combining them mathematically to identify the protein fermentation level. So again, this is something which is very shocking because and this also clearly underscores that people are falling too much for these influencers and on Instagram who still, or even I've seen certain VC funds are now doing marketing for their investee companies, telling that we are protein deficient nation and all that, right?
Yes, that was supposed to be my next statement and question, of course, that this implies that we are not a protein deficient nation. We have the data that
No,
protein
no. So
fermentation.
I'll not say that we are not a protein deficient nation. We may be. I'll not say this is a right word, but we may have protein deficiency, but it is not connected with consumption. It is
Okay,
not
it is
about
related to
consuming
absorption.
less. It is not about consuming less protein. right? Because people generally neglect that your vegetable also have protein. Oh, the protein in vegetables have low bioavailability. Who told you that, right? This is all misnomer, right? So ideally, it means that if you have, what are the symptoms of protein deficiency, right? First of all, you may have fatigue, you may have certain cellular inflammation, you may have, right, uh, low muscle mass. But again, these are not something only because of protein consumption. There could be systemic inflammation because number of other factors which could lead to fatigue, which could lead to cellular inflammation, which could lead to low protein synthesis, right? And again,
Mhm.
then this coupled with, you know, your gut dysbiosis, because we Indians take a lot of antibiotics since beginning. So for instance, just giving example, right? In a research, it was found that only 5% of the Indians have specific bacteria active that can produce urolithin A, which is again a postbiotic with which stimulates mitophagy and autophagy, right? So essentially, uh, we don't have those sort of bacteria active. And again, even probiotics are not going to help, because again, probiotic is a different science altogether. It's a big scam right now in India, right? So essentially, let's not talk about probiotics right now. But again, it could be low stomach acid, right? Because we have these acidity issues, and yeah,
PPIs and
and
acids.
people go on PPIs, and PPIs actually uh, eliminate your stomach acid. You don't have stomach acid, you cannot metabolize protein, cannot be broken down into amino acids, and it gets to your gut and it gets to your small intestine, large intestine, where they think as antigen and they start releasing antibodies, and then or your gut microbiome could lead to metabolize, ferment them into harmful metabolites, as we discussed, right? So ideally,
Mhm.
I will share a different infographic on enzyl propionate also, what kind of customers, what percent of customers have enzyl propionate, medium, high, and low, as per our
Okay.
research, our customers, right? But coming into that, right, that it is not about, we may people we cannot say it's a protein deficiency. People may have protein deficiency, but it is not about consumption, right? Now you have
Mm,
number of supplements, you have number of foods which
mm,
you can give you enough high quality protein, right? But the point is, if you are not, still you have these symptoms, still you think that you have a protein deficient or you have a protein deficiency, please fix your microbiome, right? That is very
mm,
important, because
mm,
you have to understand that sometimes it's a microbe interaction, microbe host interaction. So your microbe may metabolize protein to something that may be taken by another microbe, and that may produce another final byproduct that may impact your host cells, right? So ideally, these are the kind of interactions you need to decipher and measure. That is what we call as personalization, right? But generalizing statement that protein, we have a protein deficiency. Okay, we agree. We have a protein deficiency. How do you address it? It is not going to address by consumption. Sorry, don't say consuming more protein. It is going to trigger wave of cardiovascular issues and other systemic health issues, right? Even recent research came that ammonia production, right, glutamine consumption to ammonia, is one of the independent risk factor for colon cancer, right?
mm,
So
mm,
again, you have to, if you have a protein deficiency, understand the science right behind this. Do not blindly say consume more protein because you have protein deficiency. Don't do that,
mm,
because ultimately you have to, it's a very complex biochemistry. If that was so simple, then people, we would not have these type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Tell me one thing, if people say that solution for obesity and type 2 diabetes, consume high protein, you have so many protein supplements, then why the number of people, number of incidents of type 2 diabetes is not going down? Why
That's
we don't
true.
have solutions
That's
for
true.
cardiovascular disease, right? These are, do not blame cholesterol for this. Again,
Mm,
that's a different
mm.
discussion, right? Cholesterol does not
Fats are
cause heart.
we have discussed fats previously
Mm,
in our other talks, and yes,
mm.
fats are an very essential. But I think today let's wrap this discussion up
So I'll want
and
to say one
let
more thing here, since you talk about fat
yes,
thing, right? And I'll make it very
yes.
clear for people who are obese, who wants to lose weight. Please do not follow this calorie in, calorie out, stupid things, right? There are only three ways you gain weight. You have disrupted, uh, hormones. It means you are not
Mm,
consuming right amount of fats, because testosterone production needs hormone. Testosterone is a energy, is a metabolic hormone. You have
Hmm.
systemic inflammation caused by a microbiome, right? And then you have, cellular inflammation, right? So which
That's
could
true.
be because of environmental factors, molds, glyphosates, heavy metals, right? These are the reasons why it make it hard for you to lose weight. Calorie in, calorie out is not a solution. High protein diet is not a solution. You want to protein is required, do not get me wrong, protein is required, but you have to understand what specific amino acid your body needs based on your biology, based on your microbiome, right? Without
Hmm.
that, and just to let everyone know, so based on our customers, what they have reported or what we have found in their data is, 87% of our customers have egg in their minimized list.
Correct.
87%, right? Only
That's way
1%
too much.
have in superfood. Only 1%,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
this clearly tells that eggs is not superfood for everyone, right?
That's correct. So I think we've covered very essential points here today. And thank you so much for sharing these important facts with us. And folks, thank you. We would love to conclude this episode for now, and we'll be back with another episode soon. So thank you, Sushant, for such an interesting discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.